Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Whatever it may be, wherever you may be. Welcome to Darth Grumpy Dad Games. Alright, working on our D3 characters some more. Almost done with the seasonal stuff. Like, if you look, a lot of this is already done. I just think I just need conquests and like one thing, other thing in each one. So, I need to run some screens to get a couple 125 augment stones. And to do so, I have been leveling up my gems. Trying to get them all to at least 100, 110 maybe. As soon as I can comfortably run 120s, I'll feel confident enough to run these and get 125 stones out. Right, so I'm not wasting my screams. I'm getting the maximum I can out of it. What am I listening to? I'm listening to Modern Day Debate from DebateCon last weekend or whatever. And this debate is, which is better for society, Islam or Christianity? And the gentlemen taking part in this are Apostate Prophet and come on, drop the thing. And Gnostic Informant. Not 100% which is which, to be truthful. This debate was supposed to be against a Muslim gentleman, and there's a number of them that of the Islamic faith that do these debates. Unfortunately, like the top 2 or 3 Islamists who debate this threaten the guy's life, threaten the Christian's life 2 or 3 times. Said his blood was halal or whatever the phrase is, which means that it's okay to kill him anytime they want. That made the slice the throat movement a couple of times, and just like physically like threatened his life for arguing against them. So none of those guys were able to actually come to the debate and be in public because they were considered, dangerous, which I think ends the debate right there as to which one is better for society. So a gentleman, they found a stand-in, and I think the stand-in is Gnostic Informant. I'm trying to. I've been listening to it, and it's almost a meme debate. It's like these guys are just practicing their debate skills now. There's no actual debate. It's right, because the actions of previous people that were supposed to debate the topic were so unconscionable. I don't think there's really no reason for the debate anymore. But I'm still listening to it because I like to hear both sides of argumentations, and it's just even Gnostic has, like, he conceded the debate from the beginning basically. So that's what I'm listening to in the background.
I don't know, not very traditional, not very normal. You could make the same.
The audio at these debate conventions generally isn't that good. So okay, let's see. We were running 100s apparently.
Who are known to have been people who were part of the Islamic golden age of the Islamic science, but they were extremely critical of religious dogma.
Oh, I turned down the game in the headset.
I seem to remember which one it was. Mario Razi.
There we go.
Described Muslims basically as extremely obnoxious, annoying people who will just shut you down and try to kill you whenever you tell them that something they do or something they teach is wrong. Which, I don't know, it sounds kind of familiar, but I wouldn't say the same thing now, of course. But so you have these, you can make the very same point about the Islamic golden ages as well. That those people, or that the Islamic Golden Ages included lots of people who were critical of Islam or who were very unconventional from Islamic standards. On the other hand, you had Ibn Haytham, for example, whom you mentioned. He also is known to have said on many occasions that when there is science and there is religious dogma, you should prefer science over religious dogma. You should go with that, for example, which is something that is not acceptable to religious Muslims, is not acceptable to religious Muslim scholars. I can cite
I'm at that point where I'm kind of killing guys too fast.
exegesis of the Quran,
I'd have to
known as
change my build.
Tafsir al-Jalalain, which is from the 15th century.
And that's just from
Tafsir
leveling up
al-Jalalain
my
is known
gems
as,
mostly and a
it
few
has the name
Paragon.
Tafsir al-Jalalain, which means the
I'm not
tafsir
getting
of
like
the
massive
two
amounts of
Jalals.
Paragon out
It
of
was
running
written by
these.
two guys who both were known as Jalan. So they come and make a commentary on the Quran. What you can find in this tafsir in the 15th century, the tafsir says, when it comments on certain verses that describe the world or describe the earth as flat, he says that on a plain reading, the Quran is understood to say that the earth is flat. And it then points out, and this is the consensus of the scholars of the faith, as opposed to those scholars of science who proposed that it was a ball or a sphere. So this is the stance of Islamic scholars, according to Islamic scholars in the 15th century. But the 15th century, ironically, funnily, comes after the Islamic Golden Ages, where we had this great explosion of science. Well, it turns out that lots of those Islamic scientists in the Golden Ages were people who didn't really very much agree with Islam or with Islamic findings. Or if they did, if they made propositions that didn't agree with the Islamic perspectives, you had disagreements from actual Islamic scholars who dismissed some of their unconventional ideas, such as the ridiculous idea that the Earth is a sphere and not a flat bed on the back of a whale, as something that is not something that Muslims believe.
Flat disc riding around on the back of a whale.
Speaking of the Golden Ages, my friend said that we speak of an Islamic Golden Age, but there is no Christian Golden Age. Now, I hate to break it to you, but it's actually very funny. We speak of an Islamic Golden Age because we can basically narrow the one time where Muslims actually contributed to science down to a little frame of a few centuries where they loosely made contributions to science. In the Christian world, we can't really point at one single time where Christians contributed to science and then move on from that, because in the Christian history we have multiple periods of development. We have the Carolingian Renaissance, we have the High Golden Ages between the 11th and 3rd centuries. We have the later developments, the Renaissance from the 14th to the 17th centuries. We have the Scientific Revolution, as I said, which was led by Christians. Renaissance was led
all
by
the
Christians,
early
by many devout Christians, and so on. Which is why, if we wanted to point
institutes of higher education were at monasteries. They were run by the Christians. It was and Christian monks. Monks are not priests, by the way. Monks don't necessarily have to, right? They're monks. They live at the church, and I'm not exactly sure how it works, but they're not priests. Monks are not priests.
There's no single evidence that Da Vinci was actually inspired by him, and he also didn't develop a successful device. So he then suggested that Islam got certain bad ideas of oppressing other people, oppressing religious groups, oppressing women, and so on from Christianity, because Islam is an offshoot of Judeo-Christian religion. This is wrong. If you actually study the history of Islam, you will learn
it was
very
always
quickly
spread
that
by
Islam
the
did
sword.
not emerge from Judaism and Christianity. Unlike Christianity, which emerged from Judaism, Islam emerged from a polytheistic Arab culture and then adopted or appropriated and stole Christian and Jewish ideas,
because they were a cult. They couldn't get anyone to join the cult. So they're like, well, let's take on all these Jewish ideas. These guys seem to be, maybe we can get more people to join our cult. And then they would approach the Jews and be like, hey, yeah, blah, blah, blah. We got our book's your book. And da, da, da. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And so then it became conquest by the sword for the Muslim faith.
So going back to your first one, I have some notes for the second one. he talked about the first thing he brought up was sexual intercourse with children. This is an idea that comes straight from the culture of Judeo-Christianity. Early Christian sources from the early 2nd century to middle 2nd century say that Mary was 12 years old when she was betrothed to Joseph. Being betrothed to someone means they can do whatever that they. You're sexually, you can do whatever you want to your wife. That's Islam taking the same culture from them. I don't know what's funny about that. That's literally what they. That's how the culture was. That's what Islam adopted. You said I've never heard. You mentioned all these Muslims that are like saying that teen pregnancy is good. We should do that. And I've never heard any popular podcasters or anyone say that. Well, Matt Walsh literally said that teen pregnancy is historically common. He specifically said women
but
should
that's
get
not
pregnant as soon as they're fertile.
saying something is a thing does not
Muslim
imply support of
so
said
you
thing.
You talk about crime, and it's funny because
Yeah.
talk about like
Sorry, that was really bad argumentation. He's fucking stretching.
But it's funny because in the Christian West, which is basically secular West, the Christian West, look at Chicago, Detroit, Brooklyn, Compton.
A bunch of
There's
places
nothing
that
like
have
that
given up on
in the
Christianity.
Islamic East. I went to a few different cities in Egypt. I mean, don't get me wrong, Egypt is pretty dirty. There's a lot of plastic on the ground. The Nile was green.
The Nile was green. Yeah,
the way they take care of their garbage or whatever. But nobody was stealing anything. You go to Europe, they warn you about pickpocketers. Everyone knows someone who's pickpocketed.
Yeah. Places that have walked away from Christianity that are in our secular in nature are bad. You're not helping your argument, bro.
Rio de Janeiro has one of the worst crime statistics on the planet. If you go on vacation down there,
What do I got here?
you will be warned not to leave the group that you're with. Don't leave the the hotel region.
Hostile.
If you go out by yourself, you will get kidnapped. You will get attacked. Somebody will. And this is the Catholic Christendom. So we can talk about that too. And then as far as terrorism goes, I'm just attempting to bring something up here. There is Christian terrorism. In 2022, there was a fundamentalist Christian attack in Australia. 6 people died. It's a Christian fundamentalist attack.
Oh.
David Koresh, Jim Jones. So these things do happen in the name of Christianity.
No, it wasn't. They were
their
heretic
choices.
cultists they were using the idea of Christianity to do bad things. Right?
So
That's
another
not.
thing you said was
It's not the same thing.
Just the purpose of defense.
Dude's trying though. I get it. He's
What
got.
do you think Deus Vult is? It's like it's the Latin version of Allah Akbar.
No,
And
it's as God
They
will.
went into the East after 400
People are
years,
laughing. They're
After
laughing.
400 years of Islamic control of major cities like Alexandria, Jerusalem.
Yeah. What did they do in Alexandria? Oh yeah, they burned the library to the ground. It cost humanity 2,000 years
600, 700 years later.
of
Then they go
of
and
records
reconquest,
of
right?
intelligence. Like it
So
set us
that's like
back
saying- that's
2,000
like saying
years
England should have the right to come back
of
and
technology
reconquest the
and
United
just
States, 'cause it was
gone.
only
Gone.
300 years ago.
Took
This
us
was even
another
longer than
2,000
that.
years to
Nobody
get caught back
alive
up.
during the Crusades was taking
Thanks,
back their
guys.
own
Thanks.
land that they grew up in.
And he
They're
doesn't
all
seem to think
people
that
from
needed to come
France,
to an
Germany.
end. Is that what his argument is
There's
here?
no ties to the Holy Land in France and Germany. There's nothing. That's not an argument. They were conquering, and they failed too. They didn't have superior military. It's a huge failure. They take hold of Jerusalem for like a century, and then they lose it. And to this day, Alexandria, Egypt, one of the main 4 churches, is still in Muslim hands, and is to this day Antioch, Syria, still in Muslim hands. Even they lost Constantinople, the mother church, Hagia Sophia, in Muslim hands. So it was a huge failure.
I mean, are you saying we should go rectify that? What are you saying here, bro?
And like I said, this is I brought this up in my first statement, but you seem to still think that people in Muslim countries can't say certain things. While that's true, when Christian ethics was ruling, you had blasphemy laws. You had people being burned at the stake for witchcraft, which could have meant anything. They could have had
By who?
painting of Pan
By
or something.
fucking who?
People being
By the
stoned to
first
death,
church?
burned at the stake
By
for witchcraft
Orthodox?
and blasphemy. There are,
Or
in
by
fact, secular
Protestants?
majority Muslims,
Or by the heretics?
countries, Albania, Azerbaijan, Bosnia. It's not just like fundamentalist ISIS in all Muslim countries like you're trying to make it portray. And then you said that Islam came out of polytheism. No, that's just not true.
Barbarian, pull of the earth.
Arabic people in those places polytheism was thriving in those places, but there was Christians and Jews living in those regions who were influencing the pagans to become something that became Islam. So it does come out of Judeo-Christianity. The whole Quran is you and I talked about this on my channel. I had him on my channel, so I don't even know why he's denying this. We talked about how the Quran is drawing from early Christian Byzantine sources. You had the story of the sleepers in the cave. You know this. The story of the sleepers in the cave is written straight from a Byzantine Christian legend about Christians sleeping in a cave and waking up under a Christian emperor, because it was pagan before that. The Muslims don't go, oh, it's so great to have a pagan ruler. We came out of this tradition. No, they go to sleep, and the same thing happens in their story. 1 minute. Yeah, so you keep bringing up a scientific method as well. As I stated, what took so long? What took 1,000+ years for the scientific method to come when Aristotle was already at the cusp of it?
The Muslims burned down the library in Alexandria. That's what took so fucking long?
Being used. Like I said, Bacon cites Aristotle himself. That's just a fact. And so you can't credit Christianity for the scientific method when they're literally citing a pagan philosopher, Aristotle, that lived way before Christianity was even a thought.
Aristotle's,
Either it
oh
happens
my
right
God.
away, and then you can credit Christianity.
Aristotle and
If the scientific
Socrates
method happened, let's say in 700.
set up
What took so long? What took so long?
a method of
was to revert
thought.
back to the philosophers and the
The scientific method is akin to it, but different. It's right?
We'll switch it over.
The Christians are responsible for polishing the brass, right? They like, okay, there's some issues here, square it up, go, right? And one, right, the Socratic method is how you investigate thought, how you should handle argumentation, right? It's up there with the laws of logic, the laws of thought, right? The scientific method is different, and that it includes experimentation, not questioning. Like you're questioning people's thoughts on one side, you're experimenting on physical objects on the other side.
16-year-olds getting pregnant or something was quite normal. It was something that actually was seen as contributing to societal growth or something like that. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I have to listen to it, but that's basically what he's saying. This is, of course, I was a little bit surprised here because when he brought this up in comparison to Muslim preachers suggesting that marrying 3-year-olds or 6-year-olds or 9-year-olds and so on is totally cool, I thought that Matt Walsh said something really, really, really bad. He's talking about 16-year-olds.
Yeah, the people who had the age of the women who had the majority of the children throughout all of history.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but there are lots of Western countries where 16 is actually above the age of consent, or is the age of consent.
Yeah.
In America, we have it's generally at 18. That's not universal across the Western world, but comparing that to stuff that Muslim
To a
scholars and
3-year-old.
apologists have said is a little bit absurd. So, coming back to Islamic terrorism versus Christian terrorism, the stats are very clear. Historically, over the last decades, Islam has been responsible for between 65 and above 80% of terrorism-related deaths. When we come to the top 10 largest religiously motivated terrorist organizations, every single one of them is an Islamic terrorist organization. When we come to religiously motivated terrorism-related deaths, over 80% are due to Islam. In comparison to that, you can also, of course, bring up some lunatics who blow themselves up in front of some, Planned Parenthood place or something like that. Yeah, very, very bad, but I don't really see the comparison there. Or some terrorists who go and shoot up some people and kill 6 people. Very, very bad, of course. But we could also talk about some, I don't know, Hindu extremists, some Jain extremists or something like that. No comparison at all. I would really suggest you read more on Jim Jones. He's my favorite cult leader. Um, he was he was not a Christian. He was at first a Christian. He started out as a Christian pastor, but then he switched over and later started making basically fun of Christianity and Christian teachings and created his own religion. He was a cult leader who was no longer Christian when he did the things that he did. You said that I said that the Christian Crusades were defensive. I don't remember saying that, but I would say that they were mostly defensive, and they were mostly a reaction to Islamic expansions. But did I actually say that they were? Did I actually bring this up? I don't even remember. But the Christian Crusades were actually a direct response to Islam.
Uno momente.
it into
Hello.
Christian territories
Oh,
and took over lands
I
and
think I got kicked
violated
out of my
people's
own
rights, prevented them
chat
from going
again.
on pilgrimage, and so
Yeah.
on. The Christian world
Jesus.
repeatedly
Mute the
shouted
mic.
out
Get
for
kicked out of
help,
your chat.
asked for help, and eventually the Western
Apologies for
Christian world
being
responded
AFK for
with
so
one
long.
of the Crusades. The Crusades had some really, there were some things that were really bad about the Crusades. The Crusaders did some things here and there independently. However, the major motivation between the Crusades is a very noble one, and I would say that it is entirely justified. Certain aspects of it may not be
There we
justified,
go.
such as
Now we're on that
the
dude.
Crusaders branching out and
Pop a
cracking down on the Eastern Roman
potion.
Empire and destroying it, or attacking certain Jewish communities, or engaging in some massacres here and there. But the primary motivation behind the Crusades was a very noble one. You cannot say the very same thing about Islam, which was merely about expanding and conquering territory and killing people and imposing Islamic rule. Islam is not defensive, Islam is aggressive,
And the only reason I was able to pause in the middle of this riff
also, as I just mentioned earlier,
is because I'm playing solo. If there had been anyone else here, I'd have been just
he said
effed.
this is what makes Islam different from the others, that we have the duty to go and fight and to spread the religion by will or by force. We can argue forever. Muslims themselves have said it. Islam is an expansionist, offensive, aggressive religion. There is no comparison at all. Finally, to the point of Islam's origins. Islam emerged from a society that was polytheist, that was around the cube of the Kaaba, which was dedicated to polytheistic gods. Muhammad came out in a polytheistic society and started creating his own religion by whatever he saw from the Christians and Jews. It is still at the core a polytheistic religion. You have to look just at one aspect of it, which is the Kaaba. The Kaaba has nothing at all to do with Christians and Jews. The Kaaba has no connection to
Excuse me.
It is a polytheistic object which Muhammad adopted.
My sinuses
What
today
he did
are
is
all
he did include
being
certain elements
jerk-waddy towards me.
which I also already mentioned, certain elements and certain teachings that belonged to Jews and Christians and often misunderstood them or exaggerated them. For example, in the Quran it says that the Jews are condemned because they say that Ezra is the son of Allah. That's what it says in chapter 9, verse 30. It says the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah.
Yeah, let's get to that point. It's taking me about time, almost time to switch over to Stricken. It's taking me more than like 2 or 3 shots to kill the elite, so...
There is simply no such thing. It is completely ridiculous, completely made up. This is because Islam emerged from a polytheistic, non-Christian, non-Jewish, ignorant society and started imposing itself and making
by
itself
the sword.
the continuation of Judaism and Christianity. It simply is not. It is a religion of ignorance and destruction.
Thank you for that rebuttal. Pick it over.
Yeah, like the crescent moon symbol for the Islamic faith is this symbol of a polytheistic moon god.
Centuries
It's exactly that was the god, the idol of the temple that Muhammad practiced his faith at before creating
What do you think the whole entire
Islam.
conquest of the Nordic lands
Yeah.
and Germany and beyond into Russia? What do you think Christians were doing there? Read the Song of Roland. Song of Roland is a song, basically, that is
It's a song.
going in and destroying all of the Muslims in Spain, as well as other sort of pagan tribes.
Well, why
in
would
France.
you not
Back and forth between that. And
destroy the people
it's
who
an
are trying to
expansionist-
destroy you?
It's a warrior tale.
Right?
They're
So
expansionist. That's just the world. That,
you're
that, that you
left
can't single
you're
out Islam.
left with the choice
Expansionists when Christians
of
were expansionists
constantly
too.
being on the
In the
defensive
same game.
forever, or just going out and destroying the people that are constantly attacking you, and then you can have some peace for a while. Like, so that's your choice. Like, well, that's what you got. You continually be under attack or remove the people that are constantly attacking you from existence.
I'm not even denying that, like the Kaaba, for example, it goes back to some sort of pagan right. But then there's parts of Christianity that are are drawing from secular, but the greater
Paganistic.
world, such as like the concept of a logos and a dyad is found in Pythagorean pagan literature.
Yeah, you're talking
First century, early second century.
elements of logic. You're talking about elements of the thing that creates logic, right? Christians believe that is a thing that God incorporated into the universe, right? Because it takes a greater mind to create these things. So it's important to talk about these things within Christianity.
I think I could talk about that. That's whatever. That's not a big point you made anyway. So, I'm trying to think what you said.
There we go.
Oh yeah. So as far as the modern world goes, I don't really disagree much.
Let's switch over to the Bane of
like the state of
for a
things,
little
but
bit.
I want to emphasize the point that I made that I haven't heard any rebuttal to, is that in the West, secularism
Let's see if we can push up to a 120.
Liberalism, freedom of speech did not come from Christianity. Nothing in Christianity says freedom of speech is good. If you leave it up to the Christians, there's blasphemy laws. How do I know that? Because they did it. Even in America, there's blasphemy. There's local blasphemy laws, depending on what state you're in. And I think you would agree that blasphemy laws aren't cool.
He knows this is a
I haven't heard
stretch.
any response to that yet. Another thing I haven't heard any response to, we can go back and forth after this, is the
Doesn't
literature
require.
thing. You have the Muslims between the 7th and 10th century.
Seems that most
translating
blasphemy
the
laws
classics, a lot of the
also have to
Aristotle
do with
texts, into
indecency
Arabic,
and
you
the
have,
practice of like
poetry,
ritual
Persian
sacrifice
poetry
of
and Arabic
animals and
poetry,
shit. I
and,
don't think this makes
there's
the
even
point.
anthologies like the 1001 Arabian Nights, for example. There was a boom of culture and literature in the East that is not existent at all in the West. There's, like I said, I mentioned King Arthur.
Ooh,
If
it had fire damage on it,
that I wanted to make,
that would be it. Look at that.
Galen,
Crit
and
arcane.
Aristotle. Those are the two primary sources for science in the West. Galen and Aristotle. They're both pagans. They both lived in times when the Christians were not in power. Aristotle lived before Christianity even existed. Those two fundamental texts of Christian science, of medical science, are not updated until secularism starts to creep its way back into society. And I haven't heard you say anything I haven't heard you bring up any science.
The
texts
lightning skill
from the
one will
Middle
be
Ages
handy for the monk.
or some sort of advancements beyond Galen and Aristotle that happened before the Enlightenment, for example. And we both talk about the Renaissance. As I mentioned, the Florentine Academy was started by a pagan.
10 rolls out of this,
That's
probably.
hard to get around. Where was why didn't anyone else start a Florentine Academy before Platon did? What took so long? This is in the 15th century when this happens, late 15th century.
Oh, I had to roll a socket on that.
The Christians were in power for 1,000 years.
Well,
where's the Royal Art Academies before 1500? So I don't think you can credit Christianity for all the great things of the Renaissance. And like I said, even earlier than that, the people coining the term Dark Ages are Christians. I never denied that. I never said Dante wasn't a Catholic. I said
Yeah, they're kind of talking about the Dark Ages refers.
Classical elements that were long lost. That's what brought back this.
I think the whole term came up about the same time all the Muslim invasion started.
And then
The idea of the Dark Ages,
shitted on the scientific advancements, but I haven't heard any advancements from the early Middle Ages in comparison to the water hydraulic systems found in Granada. They had clocks powered by water pressure. Palace had running water, heated floors, and automatic steam rooms and boilers. I haven't heard anything like that from any Christian inventor from that same time period.
You mean a bunch of technology they stole from other people?
This will be approximately 40 minutes. Gentlemen, the floor is all yours for open dialogue.
You got something over there?
Yeah. I was just drawing something, so I just want to explain this very quickly here. So I said that that Islam developed its own religion out of polytheism, whereas Judaism, Christianity came out of Judaism. I try to make it very simple here, so you can see a menorah here. There's a menorah here. Then it goes over, and there's a Christian cross here. So from Judaism develops Christianity directly, and then it
Right, but Christianity is developing from the Middle Platonic world that it's living in, which is pagan. So it is coming out of Judaism, but it's being influenced by the other.
But the first Christians, what were they? Were they Jewish or non-Jewish?
They were Jewish.
Yes,
And not all of them.
Thank you. So the first Christians.
Well,
were
not
Jewish.
all of
The
them.
first
Yeah,
Christians were
like the
Jewish.
first
They
12.
themselves considered the first
The first,
Christians
all the ones that are important.
Jewish heritage, which still means like doesn't matter. Now let's compare this to Islam.
It does matter. Why does it not matter? Hold on. Why does it not matter?
Let me make the point. Here's Islam. Islam is represented by a sword, and
Islam is represented by a sword here.
instead of originating from Judaism, it develops from its own place, goes and adopts things from Judaism and Christianity, but is still its own thing. It never developed out of Christianity or out of Judaism.
So why was Muhammad hanging out with
any origin?
Because he was trying to convince people to join his cult.
Muhammad himself was a polytheistic Meccan dude whose family were polytheists. He was not of Jewish origin, and neither of Christian origin. Okay, but he was not.
You mean after he creates his cult?
Nestorian monks, Persian Christians.
Well, here's the thing. If you wanted to make the case that Muhammad was a learned Christian man, for example, when Christian people, for example, came together and developed a new sect of Christianity, which then developed into Islam, you could make that case. Then you could say, yes, it's an offshoot of Christianity. That was simply not the case. Muhammad was a guy who was possibly at some point influenced by Christians, by some Christians, and then later by Jews, but it was still at its origin simply a polytheistic religion which adopted or syncretically took things from Jews and Christians.
I think you could make the same case about Middle Platonic philosophy, adopting Jewish customs and sort of marrying what becomes Christianity.
Well, it's not the same thing because those people were Jews.
Not all of them.
Because those
And
people
I
were
think
Jews.
that's
Not all of
beside
them.
the point, because
Yeah, okay, so that argument, okay.
Christian, they sort of
That argument, not all of them. Not all of them. But not all of them. What flaw is he creating here? What is it? It's non-inclusion of the middle. Right? So, right, obviously, like, the over 90% of these people were Jewish or Christian. Right? So to say not all, like, you're arguing that the edges define what's going on. No. The edges enforce the rule that these were Christians and Jewish, right? They don't change the rule. They help enforce the rule. Otherwise, the rule wouldn't be a rule. It'd be a law, like a law of physics. Just silly. Just freaking silly. I don't know. He's just trying to cover. But yeah.
disregard that stuff.
Okay, but the topic here is that Jews themselves,
So let me ask you this.
that Christians were Jews who then developed Christianity out of Judaism.
You and I
With Islam,
talked
we can't make the same thing. With Islam, we can't say that it took things, or it is based on Christianity or Judaism. It is some
That
guy
seemed to
coming
go a
and
little
taking
bit better.
Jews and Christians. It doesn't develop from it. So you can't
That's
really
all.
make the same
That's
case.
I
Okay,
agree
now
with
we're
the
pushing.
history
We're
thing.
pushing
No,
for that
I agree with that.
120,
But once you get to the
125.
Quran, it's literally citing Mary.
Maybe get to
Mary,
130.
it's citing Christian names. Okay. And you and I have talked about this. Nestorian Christianity, this Eastern sort of Byzantine Christianity, the iconoclast type of Christianity that was around in the 7th century. I mean, you and I have discussed this. That it's heavily influenced Islam.
Sure. But when you say that that Islam is the way it is because of Christianity, because that's where it takes its teachings from, because it's an offshoot of Judeo-Christian religion,
I might
that
just
is simply
let me
wrong.
check
You're
my build
adopting
here.
The customs of the
Do I have?
culture.
Yeah, I'm too high for that.
Can you show me a source that has like
Okay, let's just go close this one.
Parapaganism?
Unfortunately, the pre-Islamic pagan society was a very underdeveloped one. But
I agree.
But we can see, for example, in the early Islamic sources that they used to marry like tons of women freely and all that. So that
Yes.
apparently was reduced in
Go with
Islam.
natural
Islam was
channelings
introduced into
here.
only marrying up to 4 women, for example. Like there you have the polygamy aspect, for example. You have
All
the,
right, and I did
instances
put
of
the
Muhammad
stricken
marrying
in
a
right.
child, Muhammad marrying his adopted
yeah.
son's wife, and so on. The society around
Okay,
him
let's-
doesn't seem to object to much of what he does, except in that one case where he marries his adopted son's wife. There is a friction where people say, wait a minute, that is your daughter. How can you marry your own daughter? And he then conveniently brings a revelation from Allah. He's like, I'm getting a revelation right now. And then says that it was actually Allah who told himself to do that, upon which people calm down. But much of what Muhammad does is considered completely fine in his environment, in his culture, including punishing and killing people, apparently marrying children, which people didn't seem to object to, and so on. So you don't need to draw any of that from Christian or Jewish society. In fact, Christian society was significantly more morally advanced compared to Islamic early society.
That's funny because the Quran singles out polytheists as people that you can attack, while Christians and Jews have a place in there.
Oh yeah, because the polytheists then became
they're trying to be, at least, even if they're failing at it, they're trying to at least appear to be from that same lineage.
But what it actually says is that that you may attack and kill the polytheists, and it initially tries to make peace with the Christians and Jews, but then Muhammad quickly sees that the Christians and Jews actually don't want to accept him because he's kind of a lunatic.
And you could say
so. So what the Quran then says is that you may attack and subjugate the Jews and Christians and make them your subjects. So they are still to be fought.
I agree with that.
And they are still seen as not accepted.
But that's the same thing Christians doing, looking at the Jews and saying they don't accept Jesus. They're gonna.
Yes, but that.
Yeah, but are they calling for their death? Are they calling for their death? No, they're just saying what they're doing is not proper or wrong. They're not calling for their death.
You can just concede that.
I'm fine with ending. I'm fine with ending early. I'm not like too inspired to keep going. But let me.
Do you agree that Islam is worse for society than Christianity?
Right now?
Yes.
Thank you. I didn't say it. I didn't say it. I didn't.
Like I said, it's a mean debate.
Last question. Let me ask you this. What did you ever come with any rebuttals about all of the early Middle Ages, Golden Age stuff? You said the Renaissance and was it
I want to give you a chance, AP, but I also do want to make sure, because last time we had a lot of questions that people wanted to ask, and I do want to make sure we get plenty of time for questions this time. And we're probably going to start the David Wood and Robert Spencer debate just a bit later, so 3:30 instead of 3:15. Nonetheless, we are going to have
And I do want to listen to that
dialogue.
one.
So I want to give you a chance to respond, AP, to what.
David Woods knows his shit. Like I've seen some clips of David Wood. I've seen some shorts on some of his stuff. He definitely seems well-rounded. I haven't heard him actually debate or listen.
It is actually recorded that the Islamic Society that
Right,
took
to any of
over,
his longer form stuff.
the Iberian Peninsula did develop.
Not
certain
exactly
things. It
sure
did take
who
a
the
lot
other
of
person
advantage
is.
from societies that were present there. Jews, for example, had a great impact in that society until the Muslims, as always, lost their cool and started killing them.
That's not what the sources say about Granada. That was completely built by Arabic Muslims.
Okay, but so it was a different society where
They built that from scratch.
It was a completely different society where they did indeed take advantage of the people living there and also live together and develop certain things. And it is undeniable that when the
Oh, so
Spaniards,
they
or when the
moved in
native
and
Iberian people,
invaded a culture and
came
stole all
back
the
and
shit of that
reconquered
culture.
the areas they
That's bad.
thought, hey, these places are quite developed. Let's keep it like that. So yeah,
Like Alexandria, I'll give you that.
I can totally.
But Alexandria's built by
concede
pagans
that.
too,
I
though.
can totally concede that, but
Alexandria's built by pagans. But you mentioned the Jews. There was parts in time in history where Jews would prefer to live under Islamic rule than Christian rule because of their disagree with that?
you can make lots of arguments for that. The issue with Islam is that what made Islam different from Christianity, from Christian society, and their stance on Jews is that Islam had a system in place, which is how Jews mostly could predict what the outcome of living in a Muslim society would be. They would pay the jizya, which is protection money. As long as they paid, they would normally be fine. Every century, however, there was an instance where Muslims would just lose their shit and then start killing them. And even in
You're right.
Granada,
Christians were like that.
1066 Granada was a
No,
massacre.
they're not. That's like
And the
fucking.
Christians weren't friendly to the Jews either.
In that very same society. However, there's actually Maimonides actually says something very interesting. Maimonides
Yeah,
is
that's
one
an
of the greatest
assertion.
Jewish leading figures, and he, living in that very same society in Iberian Spain, Muslim Spain, actually says in a letter where he writes to Yemenite Jews, he says about the Muslims that these people have treated us worse than any other people in history. And they are a curse upon us, and so on. So these are things that he actually says. So the Jews themselves, or Maimonides, for example, he didn't like Christianity. He didn't like how Christians handle things. But he said that the Muslims were always worse toward them than the Christians were. And of course, that is now debatable in history, but there is a reason why. And here's the thing as well. So Muslims have a system in place where Jews can live under their rule and do whatever the Muslims say, as long as they pay protection money and as long as the Muslims don't get the urge to kill them. But there's also the prophecy, which you I'm sure know about, which is that Muslims will, according to Muhammad's prophecy, they will fight the Jews, or it goes as follows: the hour will not come until the Muslims fight the Jews and the Muslims kill them, until the Jews hide
Wish
behind
my
rocks and
sinuses would
trees,
calm
and even
down.
the rocks and trees will say, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. Except for one tree, which is called the Karga tree, which is some magical Jew tree or something like that.
I don't
So they have a place for Jews in society, but they always have in mind the idea that eventually they will be eradicated and so on.
Right.
I don't think there's anything worse, though, than the Strasbourg massacre in 1349, where an entire community of several thousand Jews were publicly put to death, and starting in Toulon.
Look, I'm not going to argue that
it's straight from Christian anti-Semitism was the reason for it.
I'm not going to argue that Christians were great with Jews. Okay, I'm not going to make that point.
It says allegations of host desecration, blood libel, stuff like that.
I'm not going to make the point that Christians were great with Jews.
It
is very well known. There were instances where Jews
Yeah,
were
there's a
made to,
fundamental
publicly
difference
declare, or
in
publicly
their
engage in
theology.
debates
So
to then just find an
one
excuse and
believes,
start, basically
well, they
kicking
both
them
believe
out,
in the
taking
same
their
man.
lungs and so on.
As
These
one
are- this is part
believes
of
that
history
man was
and
also
are things that we may acknowledge and
God,
in the
and the
past.
other one believes he was just a prophet.
But, I'm not gonna
So,
argue that Christianity
people
is
being
free from
people,
any offensive
every one of
and
us,
stuff. I would
flawed,
say, however,
broken
that in Islam
piece
there
of
is
shit,
always the persisting
fucking
idea that the
motherfucking
non-believers, not just
toy
Jews,
of the
but also
universe,
Christians and Jews and
are gonna
others
have
are to
issues
be
with you, and
subjected
bad
to,
shit happen. Bad shit
to
happen.
protection money or else, and always to fight
Like,
them,
I
to make
personally
them
don't
listen to
believe
you, or else.
at this
That's
point
the position. There's something else that you wanted to argue
that you
with.
can
Just the
draw
last thing, the idea of
a
petty
conclusion
crime,
that
gang activity.
the
Obviously
Jews are
banned
worse
in
than the
all
Christians, or the
United
Christians
States
are
and
worse
South
than the
America,
Jews.
Mexico, not
Right?
necessarily in Muslim
I just,
majority
like-
countries. You don't find this there, and you can argue it's the fear of Allah that's making people.
I don't see it.
But
That's fine,
still
Ian.
good for society, though.
I'll give you a
funny.
chance to respond to AP. This is the last one, and then we go
Okay,
to the Q&A.
you actually brought up Egypt as an example. Egypt actually has higher crime rates than many European countries. So it's,
Yep.
it's kind of you should
Many
probably-
European, not most.
higher than Germany, for example, which is very interesting.
Which is out of control
but-
right now, yeah.
I would say, honestly, just going to make this point here. I can't say what people should and should not do, why there is or why there's not crime. However, if most people became Muslims, the world would be a worse place. If most people became Christians, the world would be a better place.
Yep.
We're going to jump into the Q&A. If you happen to have questions, please line up, and then we're going to move it just a bit back. Thank you, gentlemen, for those rebuttals. And our first question, Isa, thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow, that was an intense debate. So I wanted to kind of push back a little bit on you, Gnostic Informant, and kind of support what AP was saying about the. Sorry, I sound like a Christian apologist here, but the point is, if you mentioned about the Golden Age that this is Muslim stuff, why would we not say that's Arab? What is the differentiating saying this is Arab, Enlightenment culture, and saying, well, you have these. If we're going to make Muslims synonymous with Arabs, should we then make Europeans synonymous with Christians? And I think that's an important thing we should consider.
Want me to respond? That's a fair question, and I think the dominant culture in those places was Islam. Actually, he brought up a fair point, and a lot of those thinkers, when you actually read their stuff, they're citing Aristotle, and they're citing, so they are not necessarily fundamentalist Muslims that are coming up with these inventions, but I'm citing Arab Muslims as a majority of the culture itself, just like he would say the Renaissance is Christian, you know.
Thank you very much.
You said that Islam got its child marriage practices from Christianity from 2nd century sources on Mary being 12. The ones you're referring to, are those the ones where she is given to Joseph to be a perpetual virgin and he's supposed to guard her from ever having intercourse ever? Those are the ones that allow child marriage?
I'm not talking about just her marriage. I'm talking about the act of betrothing children at that age was common in Jewish and Christian circles in the 1st century, 2nd century.
And Mary's marriage was the common
Doesn't matter.
way it happened?
Mary is one specific case. She's the
specific.
mother of God, so obviously there's something different here.
But it was the common way they did things?
The practice was, at around 12, after the bat mitzvah for the women, they would normally be arranged for marriage.
And your source is the proto-evangelical
That's one source, but there's other sources.
Such as?
Proto-evangelical James is only talking about Mary.
Okay, so what other
and
sources?
I brought Mary because we're talking about Jesus and Mary. But, okay. But the sources of that time period
Just admit it was a
common
meme debate.
place
You threw out some
tradition
meme arguments,
in
dude.
not just Jewish circles, but early Christian circles.
Yes.
Yeah, so and also in your, I believe it was your opening statement or the rebuttal, you had mentioned that how I guess Muslims got things from Paul. How is that possible when most Muslims they disregard Paul? What primary source are you getting that from?
Well, I'm saying just in general of Christians getting stuff from Paul and then Christians influencing the world around them, especially the Nestorian Eastern churches. Paul, for example, in pagan societies, women were priestesses, I'm not saying they were equal to men, that's not the case.
Here's our
but
120.
there was a difference in their role in these cults, in these religions. And I think there's evidence that in Arabian, like the cult of Dusaris and Al-Alat, there was priestesses there too. So they did have a voice in the cult, and Paul saying that women should cover up and not speak in church, you see that in Islam. So I'm deductively assuming that that's where the practice
So that's just an assumption, you don't have a primary source.
I'm showing the culture itself and not being present in paganism, not seeing anything like that in paganism and only seeing it in Christianity. Yeah. I'm assuming that
At least I'm not die. I didn't die. I took a good shot, but I didn't get one shot at it immediately. Like
blasphemy laws.
it was close.
I looked
It
this
was
up.
close.
The last time someone was charged with blasphemy was in 1838 in Massachusetts. So although some states still have that law on the books, no one has been charged with blasphemy for like almost 200 years.
Right.
So right now, as an atheist, I can claim there is no God, and nothing will happen to me. But if I did that in like a country such as Saudi Arabia, UAE, or Afghanistan, I could be jailed or killed. So how could you possibly compare?
Because of secularism and liberalism. That's the dominant philosophy that we're all under right now. Because of constitutional republics, you having freedom of speech, those blasphemy laws aren't being enforced because people would be angry and it wouldn't work. But they were enforced, and Christians did put them on the books. It wasn't liberals that put it there.
Thank you.
This is just a simple question for both of you.
Well,
If you
here's the thing.
Go solely from the holy books, the Quran and
They
the
kinda
Bible,
need to be
you're
enforced
only going
again.
off of those two. Would you say that they're
Because
equally
right now
bad
we're
for
at the point
society,
we
or one
got to a
is
point
clearly worse than the other?
where we had to legally come
I would
out and
say
say it's bad to turn
Take apart
3-years
both and sort
into
of cherry
trans
pick and make
babies,
one
right?
look
We had to
both of
come out
them.
and
They both
we have to
have,
we have to come out and
things
go
about
and fight in
doing good for
court.
the poor. They both
Well,
cherry pick good stuff out of
maybe
them, too.
we should put some of the blasphemy laws back into
I guess I'll be honest,
practice
I don't
so
think
that the Looney
Quran's
Tunes
superior.
don't have the power to feed their children poison
gonna say you
and
can
call
make
it,
the case
I
that you can
love
make the case.
them.
I would
It's
say
for
that's-
their
it's
own
quite
good
if you
that
want to
I'm
look at the
castrating
Bible
them.
from, Christian perspective and framework.
Maybe.
It is
I mean,
a much more peaceful book compared to the Quran, which is what makes the Quran
if
different.
you really
is
want to
that the
defeat a
Quran is
liberal,
book
just
that
let them
has,
keep talking.
Universal instructions for all mankind for all times, directly commanding them, for example, to go out and fight the disbelievers until they submit to to the Muslims and pay protection money. These are things that Muslims are not doing universally, or not everywhere today, because they were stopped by the Christian world.
Because they were stopped by what?
Just wanted to thank you both for being here. I enjoyed this very much. Nasik, I just wanted to ask you, if I could question a similar question. Would you prefer if our nation was transformed into an Islamic state or a Christian theocracy?
So
I think at the
grew
end of
up
it, he
Catholic,
admitted, yeah.
and I even went back to Christianity after when I was got older. So I'm familiar with it. It's sort of Alan Watts has so I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but like it's in our blood in the West. We're just Christians by nature, and Islam's more foreign to myself, so I would prefer Christian nationalism.
So you would prefer Christianity? That's good.
If I had to choose between Christian nationalism or Islamic fundamentalism. You didn't think I thought that?
Hello, this question is for Apostate Prophet. So I am an ex-Muslim. I grew up in an historic African-American Muslim community in Brooklyn. And one of the, I don't
fucking
remember
Brooklyn.
everything about like all of Islamic theology, but one thing I
Damn, that was a
remember
lot of elites right there in that one spot.
slave that was the first, I think maybe the first black convert to Islam, and he was the first person that called the adhan, the call for prayer. And the point that you made about Islam being a polytheistic religion that kind of took elements and beliefs in Christianity afterwards was really, that was interesting, and it kind of rings true to me. So knowing that he was a slave in early Islam, I wonder if you have any information about how widespread African slavery was in pre-Islamic society.
Very nice question. So the story with Bilal is a very interesting one that Muslims like to use quite often. It's actually not as romantic and cute as initially portrayed. The sources suggest that while he was being tortured as a slave for identifying with Islam, he wasn't actually freed from slavery, and then slavery was ended. He was rather bought by the Muslims, and was then a bought person who then practiced the Islamic religion. So there are some sources and some hints also in the Islamic sources, in the hadiths, which show that that enslaving black people was something that was quite normal in the time and environment. But it is something that became even more widespread and systematized and institutionalized, you could say, when Islam took over and when it started spreading. You may be familiar with the Arab slave trade or the Barbary slave trade. Islam is actually the culture that introduced basically the large-scale enslaving of sub-Saharan black people. Ibn Khaldun himself, the guy that I cited, says that this is actually a state of nature, that that is actually the natural way things are done to enslave black people. But yeah, just some interesting thoughts.
Yeah.
Question for Gnostic Informant.
Nah.
Why can't you just say that Christianity is worse for society than Islam? Since you won't say that, aren't you basically admitting that AP wins the debate?
Well, I told him before that my position was that one isn't worse or better than the other. Why
are we debating?
Well, I said I would make a case that you can make a case either way. So I was trying to make the case that Islam could be better. That's all.
Meme debate. Yeah, it's a meme debate.
We had fun, right?
I want to give credit to Gnostic Informant as he filled in very late. So
that's the big point right there. Yeah.
We wanted a topic related to Islam, as that was the original plan for AP. And when we reached out to Gnostic Informant, it was like, hey, is there any way? And he was like, well, I was like, maybe. So, all right. So we do appreciate it.
I had fun, so.
I have to say, it was actually, we couldn't find anybody to step up, so I remember that he kind of publicly challenged me to have a debate on Christianity and Islam, and I was just, he was a dick to me in public, so I'm just going to get back at him now and basically trick him into having this debate with me. And here we are. Sorry, man.
It's true.
Shake hands. Sorry.
I think.
All right, this question is for AP. I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus Christ is Lord. I'm going to try to steel man an Islamic argument, and I'm going to do it in a very roundabout way, but I'm going to try to give you a run for your money here, okay? First, there was a movie that I saw some time ago. It had Jet Li. Okay. There was a movie with Jet Li in it, right? At the end of the movie, I think he understood that the emperor was trying to unify China or something, and then he ends up getting killed or something. He died.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, he died for this value. So my question is, first, do you believe that Christianity is fundamentally better than agnosticism? There's more to this, but we're getting somewhere.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Can an argument be made best, or can a good argument be made that unity is better than anything, that that's the best thing for all people?
I don't know.
Okay. So Jesus came to bring a sword in Luke 12:49 through 56. He basically says that I came to bring a sword here, but not to unify people, but to divide them. In Islam, the idea is a one world caliphate which would unify everybody. Is that a good thing for society?
I don't know. Just kidding. No, I would say that. So with Christianity, the whole thing is the whole division aspect is that you will be persecuted or divided if you follow me or something like that along those lines. With Islam, it's more a direct, assertive, aggressive attempt at subjugating everyone and then unifying them under Islam, and basically then also coercing subjugated people to slowly convert to Islam by treating them like lesser people and so on. Insofar, I would say humans have a tendency.
Yes, let's try pushing a little more.
And Islam directly goes against that
out of
with
cash.
force and violence.
We got time for one more question.
This is for
Not sure if
Gnostics,
we'll
so I
get
heard
to
you
a
arguing
130
that
here, but what
the
was
West
this
is
one?
more influenced by
122.
liberalism
Might get
than
it
secularism.
125.
If that's the
in
case,
time.
then wouldn't it be true that the problems you describe, like gangs and so forth, are a result of liberalism and not a result of Christianity?
That's fair. That's a fair point.
Thank you.
Yeah, he just fucking yeah.
So we're going to do a couple of quick things. In particular, we're going to do that vote to conclude. So only if you voted before the debate, who would you say you lean more towards? First would be AP's, Apostate Prophet's position.
Yeah. They get the feeling is like, oh yeah, I'm for that other guy's position too. So people were laughing about. They're counting hands right now.
And
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, my sinuses
good.
are.
If you would lean more toward Gnostic conformist position.
Ooh. Nice
I
job.
think that would be a tie.
This is the first time that ever happened?
Interesting. Okay. A couple of quick housekeeping things. First,
I mean, you have to
if
remember
signed up
too.
for
Modern day
VIP
debate
and you
is
didn't get a lanyard with your name on it. If you could do me a
run
favor,
like a
see
lot of
Bob in the
people
back.
around it are
It's like
atheists
kinda my
or
right-hand
of the
man
atheist
in the black
persuasion.
blazer. If you could go up
And
to her and let him
believe
know,
more that
we're gonna
way
give you
than
kind of a
Christians. So.
placeholder lanyard that doesn't have your name tag on it. I'm gonna mail it to you, but you'll at least have a lanyard just so people know why you're, for example, in the VIP dinner later on. Also, let me just check my list here. But want to say, if you would, give a huge final round of applause for our speakers. They are the lifeblood of the channel. Okay, so just one last thing that I do want to do is we have, in addition to our sponsors, sometimes people submit a question that is through our crowd fund. So I do want to read this last question, and this is kind of more of a personal question. And they wanted to ask for AP, and then we'll conclude with this question, followed by about a 10-minute break, and then we'll start with Dr. David Wood and Robert Spencer's debate at about
Which I do want to listen to that debate too. I'm not sure, like,
35. Okay. His last question was,
I'm sure I
how do
won't
you broach
have
the
time to
subject
listen to
of
the whole
Islam
thing
being
while
a false
streaming
religion
here.
with a nominal,
Like,
in other words, non-jihadi
but yeah,
Muslim
like I said,
in a
the
remote
channel I'm
workplace
listening to is
setting?
Modern Day Debate.
After October
All these
7th,
people, you go
Muslim
in, you can probably,
coworkers stopped talking to my wife until
if
my
you
wife
lean
asked
one
why.
way or the other
Muslim
more,
said that my wife
they probably
hated her
have on
because
their
of
personal
October 7th,
channels.
as my wife is a
They'll
Jewish
probably have
Christian.
critiques of the
So,
debate on
EP,
their personal
how would
channels,
you
right? Where
broach
they
that topic
go over the
if you were
debate they
trying
were
to
in and
persuade someone who
clarify
is a nominal
points. And
Muslim in a remote workplace
so if you'd rather do that
context?
than listen to the original debate,
I think
that's always an
I think it very
option,
much
right?
depends on a person by person
Die, jailer, dude, die.
basis. It depends on who you are dealing with, depends on what kind of a person this is that you are engaged with, and what kind of a history you have with that person. I mean, in my case, I would just
I totally missed the
simply
question. Oh,
go
give it
directly
back.
and start
Stop here.
talking to that person and try to find a deeper personal common ground to then have a conversation and explain to them that even if their convictions lead them to hate you, they know very well that that there is no reason to hate each other, that they can find common ground, putting the hate aside. I'm sure they can open the door to have a deeper conversation. This is always a very difficult question. I'm not really sure how to answer this. People have very different responses, very different experiences with this, but I would say just be as honest and open as possible and go to the person and talk to them about it. Everybody is a human at the core, as bad as Islam
Yeah,
is.
we're all
There's always
nothing
a
but
human
broken,
underneath.
flawed,
Thank you. We
little
will
piece of shit
conclude.
toys in the universe.
We'll have a 10-minute break, so we'll see you in
Everything
10
we
minutes
do,
for the next
we
debate.
always
Thanks,
fuck
folks.
something up. Right? And we have to fucking fix our fuck ups. But first, you have to be willing to admit that you might maybe have fucked up. And that's, for some people, is an incredibly difficult thing for some reason. I don't exactly understand why it is. I mean, I get it. Everybody's has an ego. Everybody's prideful. I mean, that's one of those fucked up things we got from the universe. Okay, what do we got? What do we got? What do we got? We're working on display. Yeah, might as well top them. Oh. Which one was I looking for that I wanted to listen to? Oh, the Woods one. What is his name? David Woods, yeah. Robert Spencer, David Woods. Crazy debate. Did Muhammad exist? Is the name of the debate. Oh, where's my coffee? I want some coffee. Check on the boys. I'll be AFK for a minute. Be right back.
that the hero of prophecy would be more lively.
Oakley dokley, I'm back. Excuse me. Grab some aspirin, whatnot. Where are we? Oh, yeah. Find something to listen to. Okay, let's go with this. Yeah. Does Muhammad exist? Yeah. Skip the commercials. Skip.
David put books, including The Truth. Oh, if you look in the description
The
box,
moderators are
thank
getting
you very much,
shit.
John, for agreeing to do this debate on short notice and for showing up and saying this debate from David Wood. That's
Okay, let's back up just a little bit. There we go. Okay.
second. If you're watching at home, I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button as we have many more debates coming up.
Yeah. 6
And
minutes.
I like this crowd. For those of you wondering why we do these votes, Manifold is another sponsor of DebateCon 5. You can vote right now. If you look in the description box, Manifold is the world's largest social prediction market. You can click on that link right now to predict who will be the winner of this debate, which will be determined by these handfuls. That, if you put your hands
Get
down,
our, yeah,
and raise your hand
okay,
if you
now we got all
take
of our
or say you lean toward
things going.
does not exist.
Trying to stay out of that cold damage.
For that, we'll get started with the actual debate. Thank you
Come
very
on,
much,
lock on
gentlemen.
one of
We're
those
thrilled to have you
guys.
here.
There we go.
First opening week from David Wood. That's 20 minutes. Thank you very much. The floor is all yours, Dr. Wood.
20 minutes. Holy shit. That's a long open.
Thank James especially for
Excuse
setting
me
up this
again.
conference and this debate and
I need
for
to start muting
persevering
my mic when I do that.
in the face of
How rude
various
of me.
obstacles, setbacks, threats, and so on. I'd also like to thank Robert for agreeing to do this debate on short notice and for showing up even after I sent him a message promising to humiliate him.
Okay. Oh, and I have to admit, some of the stuff I've seen on David Wood has been pretty comical. There's been some kind of comical reviews of shit.
Never go full Dawa. Speaking of Dawa, we should
Never
all be
go
thanking
full
Central
Dawa.
Dawa, whose threat. James, I'm going to need like an extra 3 minutes on my time for the laughter I didn't anticipate. We should all be thanking Central Dawa for his threats against AP, which led AP to set up a GoFundMe for a security system. People sent AP more than $100,000.
Wow. That's the guy in the last debate.
Far more than he requested.
Main debater.
AP can afford his own personal Iron Dome system right now. I guess I can thank Central Dawa directly because we know he's watching from whatever basement he's hiding in. Let me say, Central Dawa, wherever you're watching from, as you're begging your half a dozen fans for nickels on TikTok, just imagine AP swimming through a sea of money like Scrooge McDuck. All thanks to you, Central Dawa. You suck at debate, but we finally found something you're good at, namely raising money for ex-Muslims who make fun of your prophet constantly. Now, there's another person I'd like to thank. As we all know by now, James couldn't find a Muslim anywhere on the planet who was willing to come here and defend Muhammad. Sheikh Uthman was invited to debate. He wouldn't do it. Muhammad Hijab said he wouldn't do it for $80,000. Wouldn't defend Muhammad. That's what I call fear.
Yeah.
There are 0 Dawa
I
guys
seen this
apparently
thing
left
the
on
other day
planet who are
too,
willing
like
to defend Muhammad in a
this is kind of off topic, kind of, but not. An older band, Behemoth, metal band, hair band, satanic hair band. Like, I mean, not a horrible band. Right? They had some good shit. Right? They were all right if you're into the death metal sound and all that. Which, like, yeah, I am. I'll admit it. Like, Slayer's my favorite band. They weren't horrible, right? They were definitely listenable. Well, they came out with a new album, and it had their general iconic anti-Christian, satanic imagery, names of songs, da da da, all that. And the number one comment on it was Christ is King. Right? It was Christ is King. Like, and people like it. Number one like comments were Christ is King. Like, not we hate you, you're satanic, you should. Right? They just posted Christ is King. Right, so there is definitely a new Christian, like when I was like, I'm 50, be 56 next month. When I was in high school and shit like that, that would not have happened. You'd have been shunned for saying Christ is King. So there's definitely a change in the culture, and like I've said before, I think a lot of it is a direct result of the liberals, the leftists, being allowed to go way too fucking far to the left, way too fucking fast, right? You know, when they're castrating children, convincing them to that taking drugs, right, the affirmation care that castrates them, chemically castrates them, and has lifelong, bad lifelong effects on their health, is somehow good, and they were right, and they were the guys that were right, and they, like, normal people, anybody who works a job, a normal person who does normal things, looked at that and went, whoa, wait, what is it, what? And it caused a massive rebound back towards the right, back towards Christianity, right? So I mean, and that it hopefully it won't go way. I say hopefully, but it will. It will end up going way, way too far to the right for a little bit, and then hopefully it'll settle back to like. Human politics is so fucked up. We go back and forth like a pendulum, like a bunch of dumb fucks dangling from a string. We swing way back one way, way back the other, instead of just like learning how to find the middle ground. Like, that works. Like, we had a lot of traditions that worked, and then those social constructs that work, that become traditions, end up getting shit talked and derided and taken out of our culture, and the result is always bad. It's not bad. And then there's a big bounce around, and then we'll settle in for a while. It's fucking God. But I think society's kind of on the mend. I'm hoping, anyways. But that's my rant. That was a rant in the middle of something. Let's get back to the other something.
A debate, and Issa, where's Issa? You don't count, Issa. You're too nice to be a Dawa clown. If y'all don't know Issa, he's part Muslim, part Jewish, and acts like a Christian. So, in fact, hang on, I got something here. I brought Issa something, actually.
Oh, my
This is
head
also not
face
coming out of my
is just
time
killing
change.
me. Sorry to keep whining about it like a big whiner, but I'm a
honor
big
of
fucking
Issa
whiner.
being such a nice guy all the time, I prepared him something that brought together all of his religious influences. I made a Star of David Christmas tree topper from a page of the Quran.
Oh, Jesus. What the... Okay, that's kind of funny, but a little over the top.
That's hard work, by the way. That's hard work. You're darn right he took it. He's cool. That's why. This is what I do. I build bridges.
I don't think that's bridge building,
The sacred
bro.
art of Quranic got me. Now, back to the final
Unfortunately,
person
you
I'd
had to
like
take a
thank.
page out of the Quran to do it, so
I'm
now they
apparently
want
the
to
only
kill you.
person on the entire planet right
Now
now
you're
who's
gonna have
willing to
death
stand up
threats.
for Muhammad against the Islamophobic attacks of people like Robert Spencer. So, on behalf of the world's 2 billion Muslims, I would like to thank myself for being the only person who's willing to stand up for your prophet. My goodness, we're starting 2025 with David Wood as the only remaining defender of Muhammad on the planet. This is gonna be a great year for Dawa, ladies and gentlemen. And for all you Dawa fans out there who are watching, keep in mind, this was supposed to be a debate between me and Alex O'Connor. Alex was going to be blasting away at the deity of Christ. Now it's going to be defending the deity of Christ. And because of the threats, Alex got scared, did not want to debate. And so this is what you're left with. Because even then, James wanted to replace the debate with like a Muslim debate or something. Couldn't find anything. So I'm pointing this out because Muslims of the world, if you don't like the way I defend your prophet tonight, that's on you. That's on you. You guys did this. There are these little pesky things called consequences, and may this entire debate be a lesson in consequences. All right, enough of this rapport building chit chat. Our topic is, did Muhammad exist? I believe Muhammad did exist. I'm what you might call a Muhammad realist, as are most of you in here apparently. I believe there was a man called Muhammad who claimed to be a prophet and who started a religion called Islam. Robert, by contrast, doesn't believe Muhammad existed. Robert is what you would call a Muhammad myther or Muhammad mythicist. I'll let Robert
So
explain
again,
his own
this a
position.
serious debate that
Muhammad
was supposed to be a
mythers
serious debate,
often believe that some
but
later
because
Arab ruler
some
invented
people can
Muhammad in order to
control
start
their
a new
threats against other people,
I call this
has
view
turned into a meme
OACT,
debate.
which stands for the mother of all conspiracy theories. Every other conspiracy you've ever heard of is a joke compared to MOACT.
Freaking arcade.
Why do I say this? Well, think about what it would take to pull this off. Some Arab ruler decides to start a religion. So he comes up with a character, Muhammad. Then he needs a bunch of people to make up all kinds of stories about Muhammad. And not just about Muhammad, there's the entire supporting cast, all Muhammad's wives, his cousins, his aunts and uncles, and so on. The entire Muslim community of the time. They have to come up with all of this stuff. And they go into lots of detail and genealogies and so on. I have shelves of Muslim sources about Muhammad and the people around him. These sources are all made up, apparently, according to Muhammad mythicists. So people had to make up all these stories. And the people who were making up these stories, at least at the beginning, had to know what they were doing. They were all part of the conspiracy. But they didn't just make up thousands and thousands of stories. They had to convince the population to believe these stories. They had to tell the population that this was their religion all along. Now imagine someone trying to do this to you, for instance, like even if you had the power, even if you had massive political power, imagine someone coming in and saying, hey, isn't it great that we all serve our great religion with our hero, Bob the Prophet? You go, who? What? What are you talking about? Oh yeah, Bob the Prophet, the one we've all been serving and who gave us the revelations that we've all been following for a long time. Someone actually could pull that off. These guys are absolute masters of mass manipulation. So these
All right, my people told
like
medicine, but I'm finding
because
this
if they
guy
start sounding like
fucking
insane idiots and simultaneously must have been the
just
greatest
sitting here with this huge grin on my face. No,
but so
freaking
according to the theory, they somehow pulled this off. They somehow pulled off this great conspiracy.
all right,
So some
125. Let's
conspired with
see how this
amazing
goes.
storytellers and convinced the entire population that they all been following.
Yeah, generally they don't go up very much, but
And the entire
120 to
population climbed on
124
board
isn't a
the
big jump,
Muhammad
but
train.
that 125, right? Or to 130, like, and then from
Hands down, the most
125 to
successful
129,
conspiracy of all
yeah,
time. Keep that in mind.
not much, but that
I
130
don't
jump,
believe
it's
in
gotta be.
MOACT, the mother of all conspiracy theories. Why don't I believe it? Easy. I don't believe it's the best explanation for the evidence that we have. There's a lot of evidence that just doesn't fit this theory very well. So
I
let me
think we
explain
should
what I
be
mean.
able to do
It
our
makes perfect sense for someone to
streams are
that sort of
echoing.
thing happens all the time.
Stream
It makes
nightmare
perfect
thing.
sense for someone to
pretty
make up
well.
a
We should
prophet or a
like
religious figure
easy
to
to get
be
on
the
125,
centerpiece
so
of
I
their
want to
religion.
get
That
done
sort of
here.
thing happens. But if you're inventing a religion and inventing the last and greatest prophet of your religion, there are certain kinds of things that you're going to make up, depending on what your goals are. Your goals, then you make up stories to go along with those goals.
I don't know.
If you want people to believe this prophet is from God, you might make up miracle stories or stories of angels coming and helping out and so on. If you want your religion to be a force that unites you while you conquer the world, you make
Maybe
up
I'm being a bit paranoid about it. I don't want to get in there. I don't want to waste one. I don't want to get in there and just get wrapped, right? I don't want to waste my
But if you are inventing a new religion and you're inventing the last and greatest prophet for your new religion, you're not going to invent stories to make your hero look stupid, right? Or insane or unreliable or evil or cowardly or possessed. In other words, you'll invent things that help your case for your new prophet. You're not going to invent things that hurt your case for your new prophet. This means that if we open up the Muslim sources and we find lots of stories that make Muhammad look stupid and insane and unreliable and evil and cowardly, the best explanation for what we have
is that he has to be real because he's so incompetent.
obviously existed. Here's my opening statement. I'm just going to give 6 examples of what I'm talking about. After that, Robert will have an opportunity to agree with me and surrender. But if he doesn't agree with me, if he continues pushing the mother of all conspiracy theories, I have plenty of additional examples I can share in the rebuttals. So if I have to keep sharing embarrassing material about Muhammad, don't blame me, blame Robert Spencer. So this debate was going to be a lesson about consequences. So let's go through 6 simple examples. First, we know from Muslim sources that when Muhammad began receiving revelations, his first impression of these revelations was that they were demonic. When Muhammad fled the cave of Hira, he was convinced that the first 5 verses of Surah 96 had been put into his head by some sort of demon or poetry genie. We read in the earliest Islamic biography of Muhammad.
Like, isn't that kind of like the Mormons believe? The founder of the faith fell, hit his head on a rock, and had all those revelations related to him by a lizard. By a talking lizard. Told him all about that.
He was convinced that it was something bad. He ran home to his wife for protection from this demon. I could make the point about how this makes Muhammad look like a total coward. Sort of 40-year-old man runs home to his wife to protect him from a demon. But I'll leave that aside.
How old was his wife again at that time?
And it was his wife and her cousin who weren't there and who had no idea what he encountered, who persuaded him that he wasn't possessed, he was a prophet of the great God Allah. Now, if you were making up a prophet for your new religion, would you make up a story about him thinking that he was possessed and that he had encountered a demon and that he needed to be talked out of this view by people who weren't there? I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
Second, we also know that after Muhammad's experience in the cave, he became suicidal. He tried to hurl himself off a cliff. Continue reading, same passage. Since here in our earliest biography, I will go to the top of the mountain and throw myself down that I may kill myself and gain rest. Again, it was his wife and her cousin who had to convince him that he wasn't possessed. He was the prophet of Allah. Later, when he concluded that he's a prophet and then stopped receiving revelations, he again became suicidal and tried repeatedly to hurl himself off a cliff, as we read in Sahih al-Bukhari. But after a few days, Baraka died, and the divine inspiration was also paused for a while, and the prophet became so sad, as we have heard, that he intended several times to throw himself from the tops of high mountains. And every time he went up to the top of a mountain in order to throw himself down, Gabriel would appear before him and say, "Oh, Muhammad, you are indeed Allah's messenger in truth," whereupon his heart would become quiet, and he would calm down and would return home. Now, if you're manufacturing any prophet you want to unite some Arab tribes, do you think you portray him as someone who tries to hurl himself off a cliff anytime anything he doesn't like happens? I certainly wouldn't. Third, according to our earliest Muslim sources, Muhammad once delivered a revelation.
I certainly wouldn't.
Here's what happened. Muhammad was preaching in Mecca. He didn't win very many converts, but he really wanted his his tribe to accept Islam. Then one day he got the revelation he was looking for. Let's read one version of this story in the history of Tabari. The messenger of God was sitting in a large gathering of Quraysh, wishing that day that no revelation would come to him from God, which would cause them to turn away from him. Then God revealed, by the star when it sets, your comrade does not err, nor is he deceived. And the messenger of God recited it until he came to, have you not thought upon Alat and Al-Uzza and Manat, the third, the other? Alat, Al-Uzza, and Manat were three pagan goddesses. When Satan cast on his tongue two phrases, these are the high-flying cranes, verily their intercession is to be desired. He uttered them and went on to complete the surah. When he prostrated himself at the end of the surah, the whole company prostrated themselves with him. All the Muslims bowed down in honor of this revelation, promoting prayers to pagan goddesses. This is what Surah 53 originally said. It said that in addition to Allah, there are three goddesses that Muslims can pray to, Alat, Al-Uzza, and Manat. They're called high-flying cranes because the idea was that they're like bird goddesses who fly your prayers up to Allah for you. Muhammad bowed down in honor of this revelation. His followers bowed down in honor of the revelation with him. But a little later, Muhammad came back and said that these verses, which he had delivered as part of the Quran, weren't really from God, they were from Satan. And he replaced them with the words we find in the Quran today. Muhammad even confessed, right there on the screen, I have fabricated things against God and have imputed to him words which he has not spoken. Now, if you wanted to invent a prophet, and you wanted to make shirk, associating partners with Allah, the worst possible sin anyone could ever commit, would you portray your new prophet as a man who committed shirk and convince the entire Muslim community of his time to commit shirk with him, and portray him as someone who couldn't tell the difference between a revelation from God and a revelation from Satan? Of course not. No one would.
Of course not. No one would.
We know from multiple references in Bukhari and other sources that Muhammad was the victim of a magic spell that gave him delusional thoughts and false beliefs. We read the short version in Sahih Bukhari 3175, narrated Aisha. Once the prophet was bewitched, so that he began to imagine that he had done a thing which, in fact, he had not done. In the longer versions of the story, we find out that a magician used Muhammad's hairbrush and the hairs that were in it to cast a spell on him. The spell lasted about a year or so. Eventually, two angels showed Muhammad how to break the spell. Why is this a problem? Well, Surah 2, verse 102 of the Quran says that demons teach magic to human beings. Surah 15, verse 42 says that Satan has no power over true servants of Allah. So if magic is taught by demons and Satan has no power over Allah's true servants, and a magician had power over Muhammad through the magic arts, what can we conclude? That Muhammad isn't a true servant of Allah. So tell me, if you were inventing a prophet to suit your fancy, would you say that his enemies could temporarily overpower him with black magic? Not a chance.
Not a chance.
According to Islam's most trusted sources, Muhammad made prophecies that were already falsified by the time Muhammad mythers say he was being invented. In other words, it's a prophecy, and maybe later on it turns out to be false, but Muhammad gave prophecies that by the time he's supposedly being invented, when they're inventing Muhammad, these prophecies had already turned out to be false.
Like the way I defend Muhammad,
as prophecies that
you should show up and quit threatening to kill people.
Two examples. In Sahih Bukhari, Muhammad prophesied that one of the signs of the end times would be that the
I'm sorry, this turned out to be way more worth it than I thought it would.
While walking around
What was
the shrine.
in here?
The idol and the shrine were soon destroyed by Muslims, so the prophecy can no longer be fulfilled. You can't fulfill this prophecy.
Do I have one? I think I have.
Muhammad said that the sign of the end times would be that women would be shaking their behinds while walking around
I
this
have
pagan
all these
shrine. But
pieces.
the pagan shrine was destroyed
Ooh,
soon
where's your
after.
ass?
So this can't possibly have anything to do with the end
In case
times.
I get
Why would
super
someone
bored,
invent this
so I
by the time
do
they're
a
inventing it,
fucking
it's already the shrine and already been
really,
destroyed.
I use that one. It's not
Similarly, Muhammad once pointed to a boy and said that before
that
the boy became an old man,
fire. Goes in the fire.
that boy has been dead a long time,
we
so
just
the
be
prophecy failed.
flavor
Now, here's the
time?
point. If Muhammad was being invented long after his supposed death.
You
Why
need
would
to keep
conspirators
it
invent a
straight up
prophecy like this,
for a monk
which had
bill, so
already
that's got
been
to go with
falsified,
already
which therefore
brought.
exposed Muhammad as a false prophet? If they're making up prophecies from Muhammad, wouldn't they make up prophecies that had been fulfilled? Why would they make up prophecies that by the time they were making them had turned out not to be correct? Sixth, according to
Okay. Like,
the most
I
common
don't
interpretations
need
of Surah 4, verse
I'm not gonna-
157 of the Quran, Allah rescued Jesus from those who wanted to kill him. So obviously, if we're inventing a prophet for Islam, we're going to invent a similarly miraculous story for our new
Yeah,
prophet.
that's a great read for.
But how did Muhammad die in the Muslim sources?
If you've got a build for
Poisoned
your
by a
neck
Jewish
that's
woman whose
pretty
family had been slaughtered by Muslims.
stout.
A Jewish woman whose family had just been slaughtered at the Battle of Khaybar offered to cook dinner for Muhammad and his companions, and he accepted the generous offer. 1 minute. There are, 8 billion people in the world? Muhammad accepted. I don't have 1 minute. I said it doesn't count because of all the interruptions from these very cool people. Can't help it. I'm terribly hilarious. So anyway, a Jewish woman offers to cook Muhammad a meal, even though he just slaughtered her entire family. There are about 8 billion people in the world. You could ask all 8 billion people. If you just slaughtered a woman's entire family and she says, hey, I'd like to cook dinner for you, is that a good idea to accept that offer? 8 billion out of 8 billion people will say that is the dumbest idea ever. Do not do that. Muhammad is the one exception in all of history who thought, gee, this is the great
This chick definitely won't fucking poison me.
poison ate away at Muhammad's internal organs, and he died in horrible agony. So the conspirators who invented Muhammad made him sound like the biggest idiot of all time, and that's not all they invented, because look at what Muhammad said when he was dying. He then said about the pain of which he died, I continue to feel pain from the morsel which I had eaten at Khaybar. This is the time when it has cut off my aorta. He described that the poison killing him as cutting off his aorta. Cut off my aorta. Why is that a strange detail to invent if you're making up stories about Muhammad? Because according to the Quran, that's exactly how Muhammad was told he would die if he was a false prophet. Surah 69, verses 44 to 46, Allah declares that if he, Muhammad, had fabricated against some of the sayings,
Okay,
would
I
certainly have seized him.
gotta blow my schnoz. I'll be right back.
Certainly have
Okie dokie. That's better.
They somehow pulled off the most amazing conspiracy in history. When we look at the Muslim sources, we learn that the prophet the conspirators invented thought he was possessed by a demon. He repeatedly tried to commit suicide. He delivered revelations from Satan. He was the victim of black magic. He delivered numerous false prophecies, and he died in exactly the way the Quran said he would die if he was a false prophet. If that's the prophet these conspirators came up with, then they were total morons. How can it be some of the greatest geniuses ever and
Give this a try.
be complete
What did you
morons?
get? 6?
Makes no sense. That's
Well,
why
no,
conspiracy
I've heard 2
makes no sense to me.
right now.
What
The
does make
other
sense?
ones,
Muhammad existed, and he has some serious, serious problems.
okay. Going back here. See the whole thing.
Thank you, David. We're going to take over.
This was
Robert
not too
Spencer.
bad. If I could stay here in the middle. Keep an eye out for the little
Thank you very
boom
much,
boom
David. That was
spawners.
most impressive. The only problem with
Spawn
that is that we know
crazy fucking
that
dudes.
stories about Muhammad were made up
Here we go. There's a
on an
spawner.
industrial scale. After all, Bukhari is said to have
traveled around the Islamic world and collected 600,000 stories about Muhammad. And then in Sahih Bukhari, he published 7,000 of them as authentic. What about the other 593,000 stories of Muhammad that he had collected? He determined, through various means, reliable or unreliable, that they were fake. He, in other words, understood that there was a large-scale production.
All right, the way these run, I'm sure people watch the show. But the way these run is
that was going on, and that was one of the reasons why he collected
pop
his
stream. You come in here, you start at level 0, and you can go all the way up to 150, but it doesn't really matter. You don't need the 125. And at the end of which you get a chest, and in the chest is a jewel you can use for augmenting,
simply on the basis
which I'm sure I will do here.
To Quranic revelation or what was current in the Islamic world at the time. And those two things are not identical, as I'll come back to later. But the fact is that later on, this was determined to be inadequate to the test. And so a further
at about 110 or 115, I'll start popping my pylons to make sure I can float to 125 and get my gem. I don't think I'll have too many problems.
From reliable person to reliable person, like a game of telephone, and through the generations were transmitted in absolutely perfect form until they were finally recorded.
Come up here and
now, when were they recorded? The other thing that completely demolishes what David was saying is the fact that every story to which he referred dates not from the 7th century when Muhammad is supposed to have lived, or the 8th century, but the 9th century, fully 200 years after Muhammad is supposed to have lived. Now, in the first place, we all know that if we actually played the game and everybody was completely
while you're at it, you don't want to get overwhelmed. You see the overwhelmed bar over there, right under our current tier level. If you get overwhelmed, you're done.
And it goes on right through the isnad chain, back to the back, that it would be a different message.
Right,
and if you don't believe it, I happen to have some examples right here. This is a story from Sahih Muslim. And it is, of course, one of the reliable hadith collections.
I missed it.
Muslim, by the way,
Bandit Shrine.
Al-Hajjaj was from Iran.
The Bandit Shrine.
Bukhari was from Uzbekistan. So, in other words, neither of them were walking around in Arabia collecting these stories. And that in itself is important, but this is another thing. Okay, we got Sahih Muslim. I'm sorry I don't have a PowerPoint of a 20th century speaker. You'll just have to try to listen closely. It's a lost art. Amr ibn Sa'd reported on the authority of his father that Allah's apostle gathered for him on the day of Uhud. Okay, so this is a story about the Battle of Uhud. His parents, when a polytheist had set fire to the Muslims. Thereupon Allah's apostle said to him, Son, shoot an arrow. Son, may my mother and father be taken as ransom for you. I drew an arrow and I shot a featherless arrow at him, aiming at his side. And then he fell down and his private parts were exposed. Allah's messenger laughed that I saw his front teeth. So, the story is that during the Battle of Uhud, one of the polytheists, one of the Meccan pagan Quraysh, they were attacking the Muslims. Muhammad is standing there with Sa'd and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and he says, shoot an arrow, Sa'd, and kill that guy. And he kills him. The guy falls down, and his private parts are exposed. Muhammad thinks that's the funniest thing ever, and starts laughing so you can see his teeth. Interesting, this is a total digression, but I have to tell you, the fantasies and fictions and falsehoods that prevail about Muhammad today are so strong that a noted Islamic scholar, Eric Hornsby, referred to this passage saying Muhammad was such a charming guy, and there are stories about him where he laughed so heartily that you could see his back teeth. And he doesn't tell you, Hornsby, that, it's when this guy got shot and his products are exposed. That part he left out. But anyway, that's Muslim's version. Waqidi says, at one point during the Battle of Uhud, one of the Quraysh shot an arrow that struck the hem of Ayman.
This one we don't need to get all the way.
Had
We
come
see
at that time to give water to the wounded.
augment
As a result, she
any
tripped
piece
and
of
was revealed. And
gear.
the Quraysh attacker
Open
starts
up
to
our
laugh.
area
His
again.
laughter was
Oh,
loud.
same app again.
It's this grieved the prophet.
Some of these are
So he
better
gave
than
Sa'd
others
ibn Abi
to run.
Waqqas an arrow without an
I
arrow
like
head
these
and
more
said,
open
"Shoot."
ones,
The Muslim
like
shot
the
the
ones
warrior
with a
of
bunch of
Quraysh, who had exposed a
walls and
humiliated
columns,
Muhammad,
kind of
and he
stuff.
fell down, exposing his buttocks. When Muhammad was again delighted, Sa'd, I saw the messenger. Sa'd said, "I saw the messenger of Allah laugh then until his teeth could be seen." So it's clearly the same story, and yet we have several details that are different. In the first place, the woman doesn't show up in the other version. But Waqidi has this all about a Muslim woman who first tripped and her private parts were revealed. And Muhammad is so angry about this, he tells Sa'd to shoot the guy. Sa'd shoots the guy, and then he is revealed. A lot of obsession with the revealing of private parts here. And then Muhammad laughs so his teeth can be seen.
That's actually,
From another, a third
I
source,
don't know, that's
Shamil
actually kind of
al-Muhammadiyya
normal.
says this.
Unfortunately, that
Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas
people think
said,
it's
"I had
funny
seen
when
the Prophet laugh
people are
at the Battle of the Trench.
unexpectedly
I thought it was
exposed.
good. So hard that his molar teeth became apparent. I said, "How was his laughter?" He said, "There was a man holding a shield while Sa'd was shooting, and the man was saying such and such and such and such, with the shield covering his forehead. He was heaping insults on Muhammad." The source doesn't want to say what he was saying, you know. Sa'd therefore aimed an arrow at him and shot it when he raised his head, so it did not miss this part of his forehead. And the man toppled over and kicked up his foot.
Time to
The
start.
Prophet then laughed so much that his molar
Here we
teeth
are.
became apparent. I said, "What made him laugh?"
Sure,
He replied, "What he did to the man." So, it's Battle of Uhud, Battle of the Trench, we don't know. It's about a woman tripping and falling, or not. This time it's about this guy taunting the Muslims and hiding behind his shield. You can't get me. And then going back behind the shield, and so finally Sa'd shoots him. So maybe Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas was standing with Muhammad 3 separate times, twice during Uhud and once during the Battle of the Trench, and shot people between the eyes 3 different occasions. Or maybe this is a story that is in the process of legendary development, as so many others were, both those that were accepted and those that were rejected. The big problem that the people who say that Muhammad is actually somebody whose history has been transmitted authentically, the big problem that they have is that none of the stories are contemporary, and the idea that they would all be transmitted perfectly strains credulity. We know that that doesn't even happen in our own day. The fact that there are differences between the various stories, like some of the ones that David adduced,
Actually, kind of surprised.
makes excuses and says he doesn't have miracles in the Quran, and then in the Hadith he's making miracle after miracle after miracle. Or some of the other things, let me see, I made some notes about some of them, that, though the aorta story, that the Quran says that a false prophet will be struck in the aorta and then Muhammad is struck in the aorta. You have to understand that this was not done by one guy. It is true that it all started, we start to hear mention of Muhammad around the time of Abdul Malik, the caliph, from 685 to 705.
Mortal King.
And it's noteworthy since David said
Oh.
that they had to convince the people that this was their religion all along. They actually have record of that. That around the time of Abdul Malik and Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, Malik ibn Anas, in one of the early Hadith collections, he records a story where this old guy says, reading from the Mushaf, that is a copy of the Quran, at the mosque,
Okay,
it's
now
not
we need
done
an
by
ancient
people in the past.
weapon.
It was Hajjaj ibn
Maybe
Yusuf
that's the oh, here
who
we go.
first
The
instituted it. Now think about that for a minute.
Let's see if I, yeah,
That
we'll go
Hajjaj ibn
that
Yusuf
one.
instituted the reading of the Quran in the mosques, and he's around the
You're
690s and
gonna
early
need 3
700s.
gems.
And yet the standard story
Let's
is
see
that
what our
Uthman put the
what do we
Quran
got
together
here?
in 653, and distributed the copy that he had made to all the provinces. And then they were quiet about it for 40 years.
Don't want to waste any of those
that they
or
had such a
those.
book. And nobody ever quoted
I
it.
think we'll use
And then
these.
40 years later, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf starts telling people to read the Quran in the book.
See if we can get
But in any case,
3 large ones out of
the
this.
larger point is that this was not done all by Hajjaj ibn Yusuf or by Abdul Malik. This all doesn't come from nowhere either. We have Muawiyah, the caliph after the rightly guided caliphs.
Yeah,
he was the caliph from 660 to 680.
I'm wrecked.
We have him
I'm wrecked.
talking to the emperor of the
I might keep grinding on some of this. I'm not sure if I'll stream it or not. But I'm pretty close to being done with everything.
The Roman emperor. And he's
Might just call it for today after this. And
it seems very
pick up tomorrow and start running
once they were unified,
my other 55s with the other 2 sets I do for the wizard, and then move on to the monk tomorrow and see if I
were
can
not exactly Jews and they were not exactly Christians. They were obviously
augment
not
this.
Muslims either. They never mentioned Muawiyah, never mentions Muhammad, the Quran, or Islam. Neither do any of his contemporaries. There are coins from his reign that say Muhammad but have a cross on them, which is very weird if you think Muawiyah was the son of Abu Sufyan, who was the Quraysh chieftain who fought against Muhammad for years and then was finally converted to Islam toward the end of Muhammad's life after the conquest of Mecca.
Try and save about 30 of these, I guess, if I need to roll something.
And yet he never seemed to hear. They slew him not nor crucified, but it appeared so unto them, as the Quran says in chapter 4, verse 157. He never heard that Jesus is going to come back and break the cross, as Muhammad says in the Hadith. Apparently not, because he put crosses on his coins next to the word Muhammad.
Okay,
now, how do we make sense of that? It is clear that from even before that, and before anybody is talking about Islam, that Muhammad was a title. And it was a title meaning exactly what it means, the praised one. And that title was given to various people over the course of the centuries. And so in
I don't have any other gems level. Like, I don't want to use my Boon of the Horde or my Fate of the Powerful for this. So
defeated a Christian force.
That took a lot longer
in
to
Southern
get
Arabia, there in Yemen. And his name was Yusuf
item.
al-Sayathar, also known as Zunuwas. And he defeated Christians coming from
So
Abyssinia
we got that from the cube.
And
or for
left
the
an
seasonal.
inscription there on a rock that says, "O Lord of the Jews,
And we got
by
this.
the praised one." That is Rahab al-Muhammad. And so the praised one clearly doesn't refer to Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, in the year 518.
Now we need a staff of
It's a
herding,
title.
which I'm not all that
And
worried
it's a
about.
title that is given to
Getting the
revered
last couple
figures, to God
things.
himself, apparently, in this inscription.
After I
and
get
to
done.
others. So that's floating around, and Abrahamic monotheism is floating around. Then,
With a
when
lot of the
Abdul
monk stuff, I
Malik
might
and
go
Hajjaj ibn Yusuf decide this is
make
the
some more of
time
those
to
primal
gather together this,
demon
these
hunter
traditions and create
cakes
a religion.
to finish
Then they
getting
make
the
use
last
of what is there
couple
already. It doesn't
potions, I
just
think.
come out of whole cloth. They're not making it
I
up
know I
out
got
of
one
nothing.
of them.
They're using
Yeah, I only
their
got one of
sources.
those.
They did this
I may go
in
make some of
order
them to get
unify
those
their
last
empire
two
after the great Arab conquests. The
potion ads.
unity of
Right.
an empire was considered to be its common religion. There were two great powers in the world: the
Get that
Persian
one
Empire,
and
which was
that one.
Zoroastrian, and the Byzantine or
You know,
Roman
just
Empire,
I
which was Christian. And they were not
because
bound
I like the
together
monk
by
a
a
lot, but it's
constitution
definitely
or a
not
parliament or ethnic unity or
as
nationality, common nationality, anything of the kind.
sturdy, right?
They were
It's
both multi-ethnic, multinational
it doesn't
empires
take damage
that were
as
bound
well
together by a
as
common
this
religion.
wizard build
The
does.
Arabs started to put
This
together
wizard
Islam
build is
out of
really
these earlier materials
really stout, right? So
create a source of unity for their own empire.
it's got a lot of
It wasn't
power,
done by one person.
but mostly it's got a lot of defense,
Referred
right?
to as a
So you
specific
can
individual.
push higher faster
People began
without
to
being
create stories
dead all the
that
time, right?
were
Without the
justifying
stupidest
their
little
own
thing freaking
positions
killing you.
in various disputes.
So that's why a lot of times I just start
using
with the
Muhammad
Firebird
in order
Wizard
to strengthen that
because it
position.
allows me
And
to,
then
as you've
other
seen,
people would make up another
get
story
into
that contradicted
120s,
this. This is why
right?
the
So,
Hadith are so full of contradictory material. And you can find so many where, Muhammad says, don't
see,
kill the women
look
and
here,
children.
yeah, we
And
got
then
into a
others, they
125.
say, they're women
And
and
see,
children
so
in there
once
when
you,
you're
and it took me
bombarding.
like
And he
8
says,
minutes,
they are
but if we
from
drop
them.
back to
In
a
other words, it
120,
doesn't
we're
matter.
back within the
So
3 to
why
5
is it
minute
that
range for running a rift.
Muhammad might be
And we can
completely
get,
schizophrenic, but more
yeah, my head's really starting to hurt. I enjoy what he's saying, but my head's starting to hurt. Which, if you're going to be pushing, you want to push more, then you run your 120s in 3 to 5 minutes, right? And you get, by doing that, you get 100% legendary drops. So you're getting your forgotten souls you need so you can reforge your legendaries, right? This is those. So then you go in between running the cow sticks to get your death breath and and all your all your stuff for your Calduin rune and all that. You get those out of running your cow sticks, where you run your portals to get those, right. Like you seen earlier, where I ran a bovine bar to see a cow stick, and you get between 1 and 3 portals of enmity will drop in those, so you can be farming your bovine Bardacies for mats and gold while farming the portals, and you never have to like go hunting for them. You don't have to find out, like normally it could drop anywhere out here, and you'd have to go back and find it and find where you were in your bounty or whatever it was when that portal dropped. It's all right here in town because your cow stick portal opens up right here, and you just jump in, and when your portals are done, you come back to town, and you jump right back in your cow level. Right? It increases the amount of farming you can get done in a shorter amount of time. So, right? But that's what you're gonna want to do if you're gonna want to push into that. And also, like I was saying, if I got through it, running your 120s back to back in 3 to 5 minutes is going to really push up your XP rate, right? You're going to get a lot more XP running 120s in 3 to 5 minutes with this character. So you just to have the Paragon, or your Paragon, which I only got like 5 points of the last thing. But that gives you a lot more Paragon, a lot faster, so that then whatever your strongest build is, which might not be as versatile as the Firebird is, right? That gives you, then when you do put that build together and start pushing with it, you have the XP and the Paragon to just go fucking get it, right? So this build is kind of going to be your main farm and XP farm for lower. 120 isn't exactly a low GR, but they cap at 150, so it's a mid tier. And you get into much faster, and you get grinding that XP. But all right, I am done for the day for now with the stream. I will catch y'all later. If you enjoy my stream at all, like me here at Twitch, so you can get me on. I forgot to watch if I had any chats. Jesus Christ! The only chats again was one of them. Oh, free views at blah 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 blah. But I have a lot more videos over on YouTube. There should be a link to my YouTube page on my main page here, Scrappy Dad, and vice versa over at YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, all that. I really do just do this as a hobby, but I'm sure there are still people out there playing D3 that might find some of this shit helpful. Peace out.